Hello and welcome to a new edition of Design for the Times. I'm your host, Richard Christopher Scuderi. Well, I'm so happy to be back in studio. We've been shooting some of the new shows this year with COVID and everything sort of inconsistently, and I love being in studio. This is something I would love to do every day because I get to have my friends. A lot of the people that I work with, I work 7 days a week, and a lot of the people that I work with, my subs, are very good at what they do, and over time you develop relationships with them and friendships. And it's really fun to bring those people in studio. So today I'm very happy to have Attila with me. And it is not Attila the Hun, but his name is Attila. And he is my go-to guy with all sorts of floors. We're going to talk today about floors because people, I think, are very confused, Attila. Wouldn't you think about what to do for flooring? There's so much
and how to do it.
And then, and then where to break it and so on. So why don't you tell me about how you got involved in flooring and hardwood floors in particular?
Well, similar to your history, I was also a contractor for many, many years, 20 plus years.
Right.
I still do the contracting work, but then I realized that every time I go into a house, it says, oh, I have to get my flooring done first, or oh, I need to get the tile done in my bathroom first before you can remodel, or whatever the scenario. And then I started getting into flooring for that reason.
Right.
Is because I always constantly waited for the flooring guys that either never showed up when they said they would.
Oh, yeah.
It was horrible. And they always kept on blaming the materials. But it was just an excuse.
Right.
I mean, during COVID, I could see that
Right.
excuse became more prevalent. But before then, that certainly was just an excuse because they, for whatever reason, that they kept on doing that. So
exactly.
I started getting into that for that reason.
Sure.
And then I realized that some of the flooring companies also, they couldn't get the product that they ordered. They substituted products, but neglected to tell the customers, and that's not how I like to do things, so I decided to do it myself.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I think probably a good part of your job is sort of educating people, right?
It is a large portion of it, yes, because they don't know.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and you brought some samples, and then we're going to show some of your finished work, which is beautiful, and I exclusively use you for wood floors because I've been very happy with your outcome, and we'll look at some of those products. But I want to start with, you brought some different materials, because there's a lot of different types of flooring. Even within what people call wood flooring, there are a lot of different things. So I'm going to ask you to maybe explain in the first part, you know, we only have about 25 minutes left, so it goes very quickly. Yeah, let's talk about what maybe a finished hardwood floor looks like. Do you have a sample of one of those?
Yes.
Okay.
So keep in mind that hardwood in general comes in several different sizes.
Okay.
So there's...
So when you say sizes, you mean widths of board?
Not necessarily just widths, but also thicknesses.
Okay.
There's...
what is a typical, are there two typical sizes for thickness?
The norm, if you may, is 3/4 thick.
So 3/4 inch is sort of normal.
It is, but they do have 1/2 inch.
And what would be the reason you'd want to do 1/2 inch instead of?
Simply height requirement. So there's some places
so you're tying into something else, maybe?
Tying into, or dare I say this, but when you build a new home, sometimes it's less expensive to do the 1/2 inch, like a builder's special, if you may. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just less expensive.
But if I went to you and I said, Attila, I want to do, I'm doing a room in the back that was carpet so it matches the rest, you'd go by. But if I said, Attila, I want you to price oak for me, I wouldn't necessarily specify
1/2 inch. Well, I need to know, again, elevation. If I need to match something.
And that's the determining factor.
Correct, that is a determining factor. So, or if we do the subfloor, like we could bring it down and make it match 3/4.
People generically refer to any sort of wood as hardwood floors.
Yes.
But this is a true hardwood floor.
This is a true...
So if you want to see if you can go towards the camera.
Sure.
Just tell me why that's a true hardwood. Show the people the side, the back.
Yes, okay.
Now that looks like it has grooves so it clicks together.
It does. I unfortunately would think I would bring the other half of this.
Okay.
But this is another size. So this is 5-inch wood.
5-inch wood.
And this is normally 3 1/4 is the standard. They do have 2 1/4, that is older version.
Yeah, to match other wood, right.
Yes. So there's a groove here. I don't know how well it can be seen, but there's a groove here. And on the opposite side of that, there's a little tongue. So this is clearly called tongue and groove.
Tongue and groove, right.
So then, again, this is different materials, but it goes together something like that.
Right.
So, but this is unfinished. This is red oak. This is also red oak, but this is called pre-finished. Okay. So in other words, at the factory, they add whatever color.
Are you always, I'm going to interrupt you there,
No problem.
because there are reasons you would do both.
There are.
In a perfect scenario, we're starting with a new structure. Is it most advantageous to do factory finish because you get the baked on?
It is, and you don't have to worry about the smells, or you don't have to worry about the time and sanding. Sanding is normally when you have an existing house.
Sure.
And you say, okay, well, my floors are all scratched up. What can I do?
Right.
Again, floors it's wood, so you can only sand it a certain amount of time.
Sure.
Okay. However, chances are, if you just bought this house, maybe it was sanded once before, but you're pretty much secure that you could sand it again.
Right.
So you sand it, and I do have some pictures of what that process looks like.
Sure.
But pre-finished, the factory puts on all the stain and then several coats of polyurethane. When you're doing in the house, you do the same thing, but you're finishing to try to match, in this case, or whatever color you'd like.
But I would imagine there's needs for both, right? There would be a need for both. So if you're matching, let's say the front, it was an older house, so the front of the house happened to be hardwood, the back of the house was carpet, and you wanted to make it all the same, that's where you inevitably have to buy the same product,
which is or you get unfinished, and then you sand. You believe it or not, you still you sand this down still,
right?
Just to get the smooth.
Get a tooth.
It does,
right?
Yeah, pretty much. And then you stain it to match whatever color is existing in your home.
And what I want to suggest to the people that watch our program is that it's very become on trend to do hardwood floors throughout your house. First floor,
it has been.
Second floor,
now it's before it used to be the lower level.
Lower level, absolutely.
And upper level is all carpet. Simply, again, all cost, all dollars and cents, right? Because carpet per square foot is typically. For resale,
the most desirable, the best case scenario would be all hardwood floors. Right?
That's what
actually hardwood floors. And I think people are going towards oak for wood still. I think they're starting to ask for oak.
Yes.
Am I wrong in that?
No, you're absolutely not.
Okay.
We discussed, you and I discussed this personally in another venue, but there's a lot of different kinds of wood.
Right.
There's bamboo, there's mahogany, there's different kind of oaks. There's red oak. There happens to be red oak, and there's also something called white oak. I have a sample of that as well.
I'm going to start to put up, because we have a lot of pictures. Why am I not getting the signal?
I don't know.
There we go.
So,
all right. So why don't you talk about this sample? You can actually do it from the front. Oh, that's easier for you. That's fine.
Yes. No, that's okay. That's irrelevant for me. But yes, this
so what
one.
Is this?
The gentleman, as you can see, it's a hand sander.
Okay.
And there's a bag. This is called a dustless sanding.
Oh, this is what they call the dustless method.
Correct.
Okay. So is that existing hardwood that you're lightening, or taking the finish off?
This is exactly. This was technically a finished hardwood, like for instance this.
Right. So you stripped it.
We stripped it down, and you can probably see in the doorway there in the back that there's the darker color. That's the original color of the floor.
I can see that, yes, in the back.
And the reason he's doing it by hand separately is because you notice that stain in the middle?
Yes.
Okay, so I had the story behind that was the lady had pets.
I cannot believe you're saying this, and I shouldn't do this in the middle of doing a broadcast, but I went to a party on Memorial Day, and the lady said to me, when she moved in, she left cleaning supplies in the middle of the dining room floor, and they leaked. And she asked me to talk to you today. I got a job for you. If nobody watches this, at least I got a new job for you.
That's very funny.
Thank you for reminding me.
No problem.
But it was exactly that. It was a stain about that size, and where the middle of the dining room was.
That's exactly what happens. So. The gentleman that we have, he sands it down.
Okay.
But you can't only sand so much, otherwise it becomes a rut.
Because it dips.
Of course.
Right.
So you have to be careful. That's why you have to do it by hand. Because first they do a big machine, and the big machine takes the 90% off.
Right.
And then you have to go back and do it by hand, and then you do the machine to make it blend a little better. However, on the if you want to show the next slide, after he sands it down, this is the end result.
And then you don't see that.
You don't see it. You don't see it at all.
Let me ask you for a worst case scenario. And that looks beautiful, and I love the variation there. Now, that's oak?
That is oak. That
looks from the graining that's oak.
It is, and it's actually, that one happens to be a red oak, but if you notice the size is actually 2 1/4. I know you can't see it from the picture, but it's a thinner, you'll believe it or not, it's a big difference in person. But the 3 1/4 is normal, but because it was an older house, it was a 2 1/4 oak.
So you were matching the rest of the house, which was 2 1/4, which makes perfect sense,
yes.
And the reason that you had to do that.
Sure.
Let's maybe show them some other things, because you brought us some nice things.
Now, this is actually something...
This is my job, so I'm very proud of this. This is the reason I said I'm switching flooring, guys.
Thanks.
Because I was with somebody for a long time, but you're very talented, and this really, really It is such a beautiful floor. It's a very modest house in Maplewood, New Jersey. A beautiful house, but a very modest house. But they had, back in the day, they did things elegantly, and the front of the house had beautiful hardwood.
And if I may, the front of the house was only a 1/4-inch veneer hardwood, which is in the 70s. I couldn't even find that anymore. They don't even make it.
Right.
So what we had to do with this one, I'm sure you remember, is I had to take the subfloor all the way down to the beams.
Sure.
And that was a lot of work. And then I built it up with new plywood to make this strong. And because the product only came in 3/4, well, I could have put in a 1/2 inch, but I had not because there's no reason to, because I was able to build it up with plywood.
Right, make your own.
Make my own depth,
right.
Correct. So I used, this is 3/4, that's why it was so strong after, and this is a kitchen and a dining room, so I had to make that strong.
And that's the kitchen space.
That is the kitchen space coming from.
And with those beautiful inlays, look at that.
And that's actually a cherry. I bought a special cherry wood.
So the inlay is cherry.
It is cherry.
On oak.
On oak.
Okay.
And if you see a pattern,
look at how that came up. That's gorgeous. There's another shot of that. The other side is the dining room. So what we did here is that we took down the wall that was between the kitchen, which was a galley kitchen, and there are a family of 4, and the dining room. And look how it brought everything together.
I know it's hard to see, but in this case, it's a picture frame. So what we had to do is, like, literally.
It doesn't actually even do it justice, because you see towards the end you can see.
I know you can't see it, but basically it's not like it's just wood in a straight line. We actually made a pattern, so something like that. But so we made literally a box, and then inside the box we filled it with straight.
Are people asking you for mixed woods or not really?
No.
Today, what are people asking you for? I absolutely love them, but I do that for a living. What do people ask you for mostly these days?
Just either repair the wood, or like you did here, or to match something that's existing in the house. But normally these days are pre-finished, and if I need to sand, I need to sand and finish.
Well, probably the easiest, the best thing for you and the client, if possible, is to probably install factory finished.
That would be the fastest.
And the least resistance, because you don't have to go through all the mess and all the stains.
As long as you don't need to match anything in particular, yes, that would be the safest.
So I also don't want to get off topic about educating people on the different types of wood. So hardwood is wood that goes straight through.
Correct. Like imagine cutting a tree down and sanding the tree down, and whatever is left over, that's the wood.
Right, and that's typically 3/4 or 1/2 inch.
Typically 3/4, correct.
There's so many different types of hardwood. There's cherry, there's maple, there's all different types.
Correct.
And then we have finished and unfinished.
Which is the 2 examples.
So that's hardwood.
And there's also different thicknesses. And there's different grades in that hardwood, if I may just show you that real fast.
Okay.
So I'll put this down here. So I brought a sample. This is a 5-inch board.
Okay, this is also hardwood?
This is also hardwood. You can probably see by the edge is the easiest way to tell.
Right.
Again, I don't know if it could be seen on camera, but so the edge, normally you could tell if it's hardwood or veneer or something, because...
Well, you can tell because I'm close up, but you can tell here because when you have a veneer, which will show next. Well, I want to do one at a time so you don't get confused. They don't get confused.
I'm sure that this is actually a perfect time because they could see the difference.
All right.
So this is wood.
Try to go towards that camera because I think you might get a better shot of the difference.
So that
looks like a Kit Kat bar on the side because it's layers.
Exactly.
That's layers of structure.
Layers. However, the top.
So you call that what? Engineered. Okay.
This is an engineered wood. It's still solid.
Right.
It's still wood.
Right.
I mean, it's the same wood.
Well,
and it's pre-finished.
Right.
However, it's made up of, dare I say, for lack of a better word, scraps of wood. So
right. It's not the same quality of the top piece of wood. So the top piece is a beautiful veneer piece.
It's not necessarily about quality necessarily. It's a matter of also sanding this down. So this has a thinner layer than...
So I would think you have much less opportunity to redo it.
You do. You have very limited opportunity.
With hardwood, how many times can you resand and do it?
Again, that's varying of who sands and how, what grit paper. Generally, 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times in a lifetime.
Yes, because then you start seeing the nails and everything else, and you have rivets and ruts. And
with the engineered, and the reasons you're going to tell us next why you use engineered, 1 time?
Maybe twice.
Twice. Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
Again, it's all user dependent because every guy does something differently.
Tell our audience why someone would opt to use engineered as opposed to true hardwood.
Possible cost savings is one big factor.
Okay, so there's cost savings because it's less hardwood material.
Correct. A little bit though. Although these days with prices, I have to tell you, it's been Back in the,
I know the world
10 years ago, I could tell you in a
down.
heartbeat. But now it varies so much, I don't know.
Okay.
So, however, cost is it's still the same percentage, but it's getting thinner and thinner.
Right.
The other advantage is the engineer typically does not shrink as much as real wood. So wood contrasts, like when you have an older house and you shut the door, you notice in the wintertime, it's nice and smooth opening. In the summertime, it swells up and it's somewhat harder to
It's amazing. It's a living, breathing thing. It expands.
It is.
Well, tell people when you bring new wood into a house to install, what do you do?
I literally have it stay there at least 24 hours.
It has to acclimate to the house.
It has to acclimate to the temperature of the house.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I could install it fast, but then you'll have gaps right away. So,
but going back to, I think what I said was, why would, but let's take money out of it.
Sure.
What physical conditions would you have to use?
You don't have to use it, but if you don't want any contraction or expansion, engineered is the best bet.
Well, let's talk about a basement. So if you're below grade,
okay.
For support, what would you use?
It's funny you should say it about basement, because hardwood, because most
things are changing now from when I first started. People basically would say to me, well, if you're doing a basement, you can't use hardwood, you have to use engineered.
Correct.
At the time.
At the time. Right. That's still sort of kind of rule of thumb.
So tell me why that is, because the moisture comes up.
And then you need to nail this down. What do you nail this down to?
No, cement, right, nothing. A subfloor.
Well, you have to glue it down, right?
Right.
And then you still have the contraction expansion issue. You have the same scenario.
So some people come to you and say, my house is all hardwood, I want hardwood in the basement. Would you just suggest to a similar look in engineered?
I would. I would, unless they want to go through the expense of installing literally, depends on the height of the basement. If it's some basements are now 9-10 foot high.
So let's talk about that, because that's very interesting to people. So obviously with hardwood, you have to nail it to beams.
Normally, yes, because that makes it stronger.
So hardwood would be good throughout first floor, second floor, below grade. What would be another maybe scenario where you would suggest that they use engineered? Besides really the cost, is there any sort of physicality?
Only the contraction and expansion. So let's say in the kitchen, let's say you're in a first floor kitchen, right? Again, winter, summer scenario, the wood will expand and contract. And in the kitchen, you have these little crumbs. So if you have kids, whatever.
Oh, they open up.
They open up. So it's sometimes engineered is a possibility.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about hardwood. What are people going for right now? So I'm getting a lot of requests for 5-inch.
Yes, which normally has to be glued because it's thicker. It'll.
Is it the wider the board is, there's more of a chance for?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
3¼ you won't have that because it's too narrow. But
it's more,
the wide
it has
board,
more support, right? Because there's more boards.
So the tree will want to come back to the same shape of round sooner or later. So before we get off. This is a number one.
Okay.
There's different brands, or like even the oak has different species. Believe it. Okay, I don't mean the red oak, white oak. I meant even the knots in it, the smoothness, the texture.
Red and white oaks. Excuse me. Red and white oak are two different types of trees.
There are, however, but it's the same. It doesn't matter because it's the same. Even though they're different kind of trees, they still have the same characteristics.
Is one more expensive than the other, white oak or red oak?
Yes.
Okay.
Typically, white oak is more expensive.
Is white oak more desirable?
Not necessarily.
I thought the reason people picked white oak is because if you want to stain a light color, you're not going to pick up that red underneath. Well, that might been a sort of old wives' tale.
You could probably see the difference.
I do. I see pink. Am I wrong?
No, you are not.
Okay.
And this is more white because this is
because when I go into most people's houses, at least in the front of their houses, they have oak, probably 3-inch, 3¼ oak, and their oak has become yellow.
Yellow, yeah.
Why is that? Is that the varnish or is that the wood too?
It's a combination of both.
Because someone told me on a project that they wanted to do the 5-inch oak board, but they wanted to make sure that they got white oak, not red oak, because if you're putting a very light stain on it, it might pick up the
some
pink.
type of pink color, yeah. Over time, not right away.
Oh, not right away. I just thought as soon as you put the stain on.
No, depends on. It wouldn't do it right away.
What's the time frame if somebody wanted to come to you and say, "I'm having my daughter's wedding and we're having the parties at the house and so on, and I want to put in hardwood." and you're putting in new hardwood.
You
need a day to acclimate, right?
I was going to say, you need a day to acclimate.
Right.
And depends on the size of the house, obviously.
And then it goes down.
It goes down, and that's it. Pre-finished just goes down,
and
nail it, and you're done. Have a nice day. Thank you very much for your business.
Now they want to match the big party room that they've added on.
Okay, that's the.
What's the what's typically the time frame with that?
There's a couple of variables.
Okay.
Believe it or not, weather is one of them.
Well,
it's
the
really
reason I asked
out.
that is that you and I went through one that we did just recently where we had to relocate the person's furniture.
Yes.
It's not that easy. There's a lot of steps.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the norm is you go in one day. Take out, if they have carpet, remove the carpet, make sure all the nail holes and such are filled from the tack boards, right?
Right.
And, assuming they have that. The next part would be to sand the area and then stain it to whatever color they want or whatever color they need to match. And then you have to wait for the stain to physically soak in and dry for a little bit. And then
what would you say typical like stain saturation is?
You have to wait a couple of hours and then you polyurethane it the same day.
Is it really only usually one coat of stain?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's only one coat of stain, but generally 3 coats of polyurethane.
Okay.
But there's also water-based polyurethane and oil-based, so water to oil.
What do you prefer to work with?
It's a matter of time. If it's an empty house, it doesn't matter. You could do oil-based. If you want it fast, water-based would be the way to go.
And water-based, it dries faster.
That's all. Typically that's the requirement that people have is for me to get in and out, right? So, but the 3 coats of poly is the one that hurts. I think you and I did a job where we did the first coat of poly, and we were going to come back the next day. But because of the weather, if you recall, it was very rainy.
Yeah,
and
that's part of the
It did not dry.
Yeah.
It did not dry. It took, what, 4 days or 3 days?
4 days.
That was even new for me. Normally it's faster than that.
Yeah, well, it's part of the, again,
but it was on the second floor. It was an old wood, and it just didn't.
Scenario.
It didn't soak it in as fast as what we expected to.
Now, I see that you brought some other wood samples for us.
Yes.
Why don't you show us what else you have?
So real fast, I know I keep on avoiding it.
No, I go to you. You're my expert. I'm learning as we do this.
So this is called number 1 wood, and it's basically because, and again, I'll try to hold it in a way
Maybe I can hold one and you can hold one.
All right, that's fair.
And you go to that camera and I'll go to this camera.
Okay, so this is called Select. And the reason it's called Select is because there's not too many knots. It's more uniform in color.
Oh, so Select means less knots.
Typically, yes.
Okay, or no knots, or just
less.
Been selected, so the boards are
It can't be no knots, but it's not big knots.
Because the wood was selected.
Very good.
So more expensive.
And it's clearly a little bit more expensive. Not as much as, percentage-wise, maybe 10, 15% more.
What's the word besides Select? What's the other word?
That one is the number 1.
Oh. Okay.
I would think number 1 would be number 1.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
No,
okay.
Number 1 is really good, and there's different.
Maybe select and non-select. I had to just try to process it in my own brain.
And there are other categories beyond that.
So this would be less expensive.
That would be less expensive, yes. And the only reason is because you see more of the wooden pattern.
There was people going through it, right? It's like
and the different shades. You see that. I mean, I know this has different shades, but that has a dramatic change. Like an example, the picture that's behind you.
Right.
That is definitely not Select. And that's a standard. You see the knots more. You see the wood grain more.
I actually kind of like this, and this almost doesn't look as much as oak as that does.
I know, it's amazing.
Because my dad was a contractor, and I was always with him, and that reminds me of the raw oak that he would work with.
But again, see how I brought this on purpose.
No, that just screams oak. Right.
But everybody has a different taste.
Right.
So you may like this, other person may not.
I would like this with the knots in it because I think it would look good with it.
It's a character, just like what we did on that floor, yes.
Now, we're less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I want to, you spent all that time. Show me what else you have with wood. I'm going to give this back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So actually, wood-wise, that's it.
Okay.
However, there's another product. It's called a LVP, Luxury Vinyl Plank.
Okay.
On this one, I don't know which camera I'm doing, but I'll choose that one.
Try that because that's directly across.
No problem.
So I thought it was called LVT, Luxury Vinyl
Tile.
Oh, no, it's plank because
it's plank because it's a plank. So this is typically the width, which is about 6 inches or so.
This is made of what?
This is made of...
Like plastic or vinyl? It's vinyl.
It's vinyl, but I don't want people to think plastic. Oh, I got step on a plastic.
No, look at it.
But
it's amazing.
I know you don't see it on the camera, but this has... I don't know here. It has texture. It feels like a real... It feels like wood.
Right.
And it looks like wood.
It's lovely. They've come a long way.
Now there's different variety, and in this case it has a waterproof backing. It's rubber, and so it's soft when you step on it.
So what would this
And this
be?
clicks together. There's a little edge.
Oh, there is that, because I was looking for grooves. Oh,
No,
there
no,
is. Okay.
there are, but well, I'll try to hold it like that. But
Okay.
it basically has pattern in it to make
Okay.
it click together. It's a click floor.
So what would,
You don't glue this or anything.
what would this be a good application for going with LVP?
Anything subfloor,
Below grade.
anything below grade is a
Because
no-brainer.
this is just a strict glue down.
no glue at all.
No glue at all?
No, at all.
So you're on slab. A slab has moisture. Don't you also need to glue?
That's what this is for.
Oh, it blocks it.
It blocks it, is right, and it's
So
guaranteed.
it's just click.
That's all it is.
Wow.
Now there's different grades of this too. There's different.
Sure.
It's called mils, M-I-L. So millimeters, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's different grades.
So it's based on thickness?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's, and I don't mean but box stores. I'm not going to mention their names, but box stores typically sell these for cheaper.
Oh yeah, because it's a different grade.
It's a thin material.
Right.
So 3 millimeters, 4, 5, 6, 7. All that is good, but what happens is when you scratch it, it's very difficult to get it out, and you won't
I don't
see
think, I think you'd have to put an area roach down.
yeah, of course. There's also, and sort of say more trustworthy material, if you may, are thicker mills. You want something 12 and above. There's, I think it goes up to 20. 16 is what I typically install. But
Is it softer on your feet?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's my problem with this, and I don't have a problem with this, but this is the part where I think there's a disconnect. If you're doing your whole home, let's say you have a shore house, a beach house, and you don't want
that's a great application.
Right, and you have a bungalow and then something like that, I feel that you have to do that throughout. I don't like when people have hardwood floors and then it butts up to this, because it just becomes like it loses its value.
Well, actually, I did something on purpose.
Okay.
Do you remember the color I showed you?
What a good segue, and I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
you could see that this is pretty close, and then you could put a transition piece like right there. But that's actually the reason that I brought this, is that it's similar color.
Right.
And if somebody wants to save money, for argument's sake, on a beach house or something.
Well, you made it look pretty good there. You made me look like I'm not saying.
No, it wasn't like that at all. However, I understand and I agree with your point of continuities. I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Okay.
However, if they already have this existing or something similar existing, now I can make it. Again, it's all money.
That's a very good match.
It's all about money, right?
Yeah.
So,
no,
but yes, but I understand, and your point is valid.
Continuity, value.
Your point
thickness.
is valid, and
we have about 30 seconds left. I just want to tell if they want to get in contact with you, how they can get in contact with you.
Well, clearly it could go through you, hopefully.
Okay, yeah.
And if that doesn't work, my name is Attila Huebscher, and my phone number is 908-627-6551.
Do you have a website?
I do.
Okay.
It's buildingyourway.com.
Buildingyourway.com.
Very simple. Yeah.
Well, Attila, thank you for being my guest. I find you to be a real craftsman.
Thank you.
You show up, which is half the battle.
Yes.
I thank you for so much for being my guest.
Likewise, and thank you so much for the opportunity.